Alright, so you want to learn how to make your own snare samples. If you haven't already watched my other videos on sound design, you'll definitely want to watch those first because this is definitely the toughest one out of all of them. Also, we will be using some of the samples that we made in the last video in this, because sometimes you layer samples. Overall, I recommend watching through all of them, but ultimately it's your decision. It will be easier to follow along if you watch through all of them. But so with that out of the way, we're going to load up a synthesizer. I'm just going to use Vital, which is free. You can use almost any synthesizer for this though. Anyway, so what a snare drum basically is it's a sine wave, and then we have a volume envelope kind of like that, you know, just like a very short hit, and then we're going to add noise, but then we're going to slightly filter it. You know, so I just did a band pass, and then I turned up the drive a bit. That's basically it for your very, very basic snare drum. You know, it's definitely not the best sounding, but that's the basics. From there, you can, you know, change the note for the sine wave. We're actually going to look at some commonly used snare samples. So we're going to look at the Roland 808 and 909 snare samples. So that's the 909, and this is the 808. So the 909 is really common in EDM genres, and like variations on the 909. And the 808 and variations on the 808 are really common in like trap, hip hop, sometimes even R&B genres. So we're going to start with trying to recreate the 909. So we're going to take the 909 snare, put it over here. So you'll notice up here that the tone isn't the exact same. So we're largely going to do the same thing from last time. This time I'm going to do a separate volume envelope for each kind of sound we got. That way we can have them at slightly different lengths. And so now the first obvious difference is that the main tone is really high. That seems about right, but you'll also notice there's a little bit of extra tone coming out through here, like just a little bit higher. So there's a few ways we can go about doing that. The first is a pitch envelope, maybe about 5 semitones up, and then have it very short. And then the second one, which we can also do a pitch envelope on, which we're going to want to do the same 5 semitones in the same envelope, just so that it's not like coming like out of tune mid envelope or whatever. And then we're also going to want its own volume envelope. All right, so maybe something like that, and then we're going to send it to the first filter mainly just for drive. And then the main thing that really gives the 909 snare its sound is compression. Quite a lot of it. So this compressor is kind of like OTT, which if you don't know what OTT is, it stands for like over the top compressor. You can get it for free. It looks like this. Pretty much just Google OTT if you don't have it, but we're going to use the compressor built in to Vital right now. And then kind of just play with the knobs till it sounds kind of like how we wanted. So I boosted the low and the band knobs, and then I increased the release a bit. From there, we're going to do EQ. Although we might actually want some distortion first, because there's a lot more of these like mid frequencies coming through. And then there's only so much you can do with this EQ, so that's basically what I'm going to have for now, just with Vital. But then, you know, with a EQ plugin afterwards, we can tweak it a little bit more. You know, so basically now we have something like this compared to that. I guess technically we could volume match it. You know, it's definitely not perfect, but you get the point. You know, you could go in and tweak tiny little things about it till you get it perfect. But this is the way that the sound's basically made. And that's the way most EDM snares are made, if you want to make your own, is, you know, you do the basics. You could maybe add, you know, more than one tone, maybe tweak the specific wave you're using, maybe even tweak the noise, you know, use something other than white noise. But the main thing for EDM snares is lots of compression. So like we could even throw OTT on this. Actually, that sounds cool. I see, that's the thing, is if it sounds cool, then it is cool, basically. So that's sound design. I know I say that really often, but that really is how it works. But so anyways, onto 808 snare, which we're actually going to look at this with EQ real quick. So again, you'll notice there's 2 tones here coming through. Otherwise, seems pretty simple. All right, so just like last time, start with a sine wave, and then I'm going to give each sound its own volume envelope, though we are going to have more than one sine wave for this sound. To start, you know, we're just doing the normal sine wave, white noise, with the bandpass. Alright, let's look at this through the EQ. So that's at a C. What notes are the 808 snare at? So this is about an F, and then maybe, is that also about an F? Seems like maybe about an F an octave down. So we'll go about 5 up and 7 down. And so the main thing here are very short volume envelope. Like here it is without the noise. Like that's how short you want it. Because if it's longer and too much of the tone comes through, sounds kind of weird. So you want it really short for this. And then we're going to want to turn the drive up on the noise quite a bit. But then we're going to want to go into the EQ, raise up some of the high end, and then cut some of these middle frequencies. Then I'm going to add some distortion. And then something that I do to really give it the impact that we want is with an envelope on the filter. See, so it's pretty small envelope, but just that really fast swooping sound gives it a lot more like impact. Bypassed. And then here it is, enabled. See, it has a bit more like force to it, which we might actually want to lower this. You know, something like that. And then from there, you might want to do afterwards compression, but not in the way that we did compression for the 909 snare. So here we would do like a normal fruity compressor. You know, so if we turn the threshold down a lot, turn the ratio up, we get something weird like that, but then we turn the attack up. You know, we can get a pretty hard-hitting sound. With EQ, I'm going to cut out this low end, and then I'm going to soften this specific tone. So that you'll notice that it still has these peaks, but the peaks are a lot, like, noisier, I guess. And then I'm going to boost about here, and cut about here. Here, I might actually increase the attack on the compressor. And then cut out more in the middle here. So now the EQ looks kind of like that. It's definitely not the perfect sound that we get. You know, there's a lot of things you could tweak here. You know, the amount of distortion, the specific times on the compressor, the amount of compression, you know, but something like that. That sounds about what we're looking for, right? And then for the next one, we're actually going to save this as a sample. This next snare is basically going to show you how snares get passed down and, you know, become really unique and different over time. So we're just going to record that snare. So there's this specific snare used in trap music a lot that you've definitely heard. But how exactly do you make it, right? It's a very weird sound, and I have not quite perfected how it was made, but we will get in the general ballpark of it. So the way the snare was made, it was actually taken out of a song. And so because of that, you actually have multiple sounds happening at the same time that you may not even notice. So we're going to put that there. But so what they are an 808 snare. So we're going to load in our example snare here. And then maybe shorten it a bit. But so then sounds it was layered with that we've made in the other videos include this little clav, which is put way up here at about this note. It's probably not the specific note, but, and then a clap. So the way it was done originally was specifically sounds from the 808. So it was like the 808 clav, the 808 snare, and the 808 clap all layered together. So that's how it starts, but from there we're going to all send them to one track, and then we're going to shape it with distortion, compression, EQ, all that. So we're going to start with a bit of distortion, maybe something like that. And then EQ. You'll notice a lot of the high ends kind of cut out. But you don't want to cut out this clav, or whatever tone here. So maybe something like that. We're going to shorten the clap a bit more. And then we're going to do compression. Then let's try to gain match it a bit. So something I'm kind of hearing is that it seems like maybe there's a bit of distortion on this specific sound. So we're going to do that. And then route it back to our snare. It also seems like they cut this lower fundamental here. And then let's look at it in a limiter to kind of see more about it. So yeah, it has a kind of more squished dynamics to it. And so you can do that with distortion or compression. So I'm just going to shape the tone a bit more with EQ. Kind of looking for something like that. You know, there is this really low tone that we probably don't need to recreate, because generally if you're going to use a snare like this low like really, really low note is going to get cut during mixing because that's what you're really hearing. That's unneeded for the snare sound. So in mixing, it's definitely going to get cut. So you're going to hear something more like this. I just noticed that this is actually tuned to C and theirs. So maybe that'll make it even closer. Another thing I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to route the clap to its own track and then route it back to the snare. But with the clap, I think I'm going to individually compress it, but not to a like too extreme amount. Maybe something like that, and then increase the attack. I don't know, something like that. And then we're probably going to want to put another distortion on it, something like that, to kind of crush the dynamics. Which we might have actually crushed too much. And then something like a limiter. But so yeah, it's gonna, again, like the other ones, it's gonna take quite a bit of tweaking to get it exact, because basically without knowing the exact process they did, you probably aren't gonna get the exact sound. And as far as I know, nobody knows the exact process for this sound, but it gives you an idea of what you could do to make your own snare. So, you know, we have that for now, but what if you changed out this percussion? You know, maybe something like that. And it already sounds a little different. Maybe you change out the clap. I don't like the sound of that much, but maybe we lower it. We're going to turn a lot of these off. You know, what if you don't shorten the snare that much? What if these are slightly off in timing? You know, what if this is lower? What if this is pitched up? What if you do put OTT on this snare? You know, there's a lot of different things you can do. So that snare I just made could be useful in like a hyperpop song, maybe. You know, it fuses some EDM elements with some trap elements. That's pretty common in hyperpop. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and record it. And you know, a lot of the same tips from the other videos apply to this one. So like if you want to throw effects on it, you can throw effects on it. If you want to throw, you know, maybe effects on just some layers, you can throw effects on just some layers. You know, if you want like a looser feeling, you can increase the attack time. Now it's almost more like a clap sound. Then we can tighten it up, maybe something like that. You know, it almost sounds like you're hitting it less hard, you know, like if it was a real drum. So, you know, that could be good for something like lo-fi or R&B. And speaking of lo-fi, you could throw lo-fi plugins on it, like, you know, like a bit crusher or anything. Like, you have so many options here. So really the only rules, I guess you could say, is you want a tone coming through, you know, in this upper bass to low mid area. It doesn't need to be a very strong tone, doesn't need to last long at all. In fact, probably shouldn't last long. And then generally you're going to have some noisiness up in the top ranges. And then, yeah, the sample as a whole is going to be pretty short. Other than that, you can kind of do whatever you want. So I guess as one last thing to show that you can do whatever you want, I am once again going to create a snare out of something completely random. So here's like a little like texture sample that I use pretty often. We're just going to take it, we're going to shorten it to maybe one of these little peaks, because it already has like a similar volume envelope from what we need. And then let's put it way down. Maybe even that low. Let's send it to a track. The first thing I'm going to do is compression to kind of shape the sound more like how I want it. Actually, first I'm going to do distortion to add extra tones. Maybe something like that. And then I'm going to use compression. Something like that. And then let's use some EQ. So maybe cut out about here. And maybe boost up here. And then maybe cut out some of the mids, just because, you know, you mainly want noise up here, and then a tone coming through here, but in here, do you really need much? Sometimes you want noise here, sometimes you don't. It's up to you. And then maybe let's do a multi-band compressor. You know, so we could have something like that. I actually think I want to shorten this. Okay, so we're getting somewhere, right? Let's go back to EQ. We're gonna get a little bit more, I guess, invasive with the EQ this time. Then you know what? Let's maybe move this up a bit. You know, almost. We're almost there. I think I'm gonna noise gate it to get rid of that kind of crushed tail there. Kind of give it more of that quick sound we want. Then maybe use a limiter to lower this peak a bit. I'm gonna turn the release down. And then I want to get rid of that kind of like sizzle sound, so I'm gonna bring up another multi-band compressor. Gonna bypass the low and the mid and only mess with the high band. So that's what it sounds like bypassed. That's what it sounds like on. So we definitely got rid of the fizziness there. But we got to make sure it doesn't completely destroy the sound. You know, maybe something like that. So we can always resample it, so we're going to send it to the playlist as an audio clip / channel. But so we have this now. And then now that we're here, you know, we can do this. I think I like it like that. And then maybe even pitch it up. You know, I think I like that. I think, you know, to show how it sounds like in a song, I built a very simple beat. But see what I'm saying? And that sound started as this. You know? And then became this. You know, so once you know, like, the general basics of how a sound is made, you can do a lot to basically get there. You know, like, if you wanted to pitch the same sound down a ton, cut out a lot of the higher frequencies, you'd probably have a kick. Maybe put some compression on it, you know, but basically you get the idea. Once you know the basics of a sound, it's really easy to, like, make what you really, really want to make. You know, which is stuff for songs. But anyways, that's going to be it for my series on sound design for the time being. I'm probably going to start making videos more on, like, music theory. Or maybe, like, basics for beat making, like how to actually make a beat, how to make a beat for, like, people who are brand new to it, because, you know, sound design is like a really specific thing that's mainly for more experienced producers, and, you know, there's not the biggest audience for it. It's just something that I like dabbling with, but there's just really not that many good videos on it, I felt like, so I decided to make my own. So yeah, that's that. You know, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Also, let me know if this helped you at all. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, subscribe. See ya.